It seems that Ukraine has already started using ATACMS, the long-range missiles, to strike inside Russia. We have the footage of the first strike, and on top of that, this was in the Bryansk Oblast of Russia. This location suggests that the use of ATACMS is not just limited to the Kursk Oblast, as the New York Times report initially suggested. In fact, Ukraine is allowed to use these anywhere inside Russia. Soon after the initial report came out, Kremlin officials were out in full force claiming how this is a huge deal, and this now means that Russia is at war with NATO and US, while they completely overlook the fact that North Korean troops are in Russia fighting against Ukrainian forces. Chinese drones are attacking Ukraine, Iranian drones are attacking Ukraine, and North Korean missiles operated by North Korean soldiers are attacking Ukraine. All this is not a big deal according to Kremlin, but Western allies helping Ukraine strike inside Russia is for some reason a huge deal. So let's get into the initial footage of that ATACMS strike inside Russia and much more in today's video. But before we start, please be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously. And let's go. First footage we have is from November 19th, which is today. It is at night, so it's a little hard to see, but we can see the strike on an ammunition depot in Karachev in Bryansk. I don't know how the internet got the footage because according to Russian officials, the ATACMS never hit the ground. The Russian air defenses shot all of them down in the air, but somehow the ammunition depot was destroyed. Here, watch the footage.
Ух, ни хрена себе. Ну, такое было, как в прошлый раз. Ракета как будто туда прилетела. Да нет, это... Там такая только что была полоса, как будто ракета. Ух.
Now, soon after the initial reports came out, we had the Russian spokesperson, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, say that this war is not against Ukraine anymore, but the war is between Russia and NATO. Then the whole world went crazy. It was like, oh my God, World War III is staring then around the same time. Putin signs in law the new Russian nuclear doctrine, when in reality, none of this is new. Russia has been saying that it's at war with NATO for years, and the nuclear doctrine that Putin just signed into law was basically already law for a few months now. So nothing new has happened, but the people are using this new cycle to overblow the situation, making it seem like it's the US who's escalating this war, and it's not Russia who has been using North Korean troops on the ground, who has been using Chinese drones now, who has been using Iranian drone ever since the war started. Just to look back, here's Putin, few months back, explaining why American missiles striking inside Russia would be such a big deal right here.
What we are seeing is an attempt to substitute notions. Because this is not a question of whether the Kiev regime is allowed or not allowed to strike targets on Russian territory. It is already carrying out strikes using unmanned aerial vehicles and other means. But using Western-made long-range precision weapons is a completely different story. The fact is that I have mentioned this, and any expert both in our country and in the West will confirm this. The Ukrainian army is not capable of using cutting-edge high-precision long-range systems supplied by the West. They cannot do that. These weapons are impossible to employ without intelligence data from satellites which Ukraine does not have. This can only be done using the European Union's satellites or US satellites, in general NATO satellites. This is the first point. The second point, perhaps the most important, the key point even, is that only NATO military personnel can assign flight missions to these missile systems. Ukrainian servicemen cannot do this. Therefore, it is not a question of allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons or not. It is about deciding whether NATO countries become directly involved in the military conflict or not. If this decision is made, it will mean nothing short of direct involvement. It will mean that NATO countries, the United States and European countries are parties to the war in Ukraine. This will mean their direct involvement in the conflict, and it will clearly change the very essence, the very nature of the conflict dramatically. This will mean that NATO countries, the United States and European countries, are at war with Russia. And if this is the case, then bearing in mind the change in the essence of the conflict, we will make appropriate decisions in response to the threats that will be posed to us.
Here's the nuclear doctrine that Russia changed a few months back. But since Putin signed it into law today, everyone's making a big deal out of it. The main difference in this new doctrine compared to the older one is it says that Russia can now attack or use nuclear weapons against a country if that country is attacking Russia and it's attacking it with the help of a nuclear country. For example, if Ukraine attacks Russia and Ukraine doesn't have nukes, but let's say UK or US is helping Ukraine attack Russia, then Russia can use nuclear weapons since the nuclear state is helping that country. Here's the spokesperson, Dmitry Pascow, explaining that in a little bit more detail.
In the light of the, could you just share some more details of the changes in the nuclear doctrine that have just been announced by Kremlin?
First of all, why it was necessary? It was necessary in order to adapt, to ensure an adaptation of our nuclear vision into realities of the modern day. What is the most striking example of the realities of the modern day? Authority in the White House in the United States takes a decision to use their weapon, American-produced weapons, against the Russian Federation. It's a striking example of new environment around our country. And it makes it necessary for us to ensure that the conception is updated. So we needed that update. We ensured it. This is number one. Number two. So just a second, I'll take a text. I have it on my working table. Yeah. Because this is the most important issue for today, and also it's of a great interest for our journalists here in Russia. So Russia actually was treating nuclear arms like a mean of deterring. So it's nuclear deterioration, and the usage of nuclear arms, is the last measure. Is the last measure that no one wants to undertake. Actually, and Russia has always been a very responsible country in order to exclude such a threat of using of nuclear arms and to contribute in global peace and stability. So nuclear deterrence is aimed at ensuring the understanding by a potential enemy of Russia of inevitability of nuclear answer should they try to make an aggression against Russia. And also there is another very important thing. Should a country attack our country, attack us by conventional weapons, but with the help and assistance by a nuclear state, we will treat it as a joint attack against our country with the relevant consequences.
What's even more funny is that we had Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov saying that the Western missiles are being used in Russia already, and this is a significant escalation that could push Russia to use nuclear weapons, and he puts the blame on the West. But the interesting part is, how can Russia threaten the world with nuclear weapons when their own president cannot travel outside Russia? Now all the world leaders are in Brazil for the G20 summit, but there's one president who's missing, and that's Putin. And two reasons for that. Putin is worried that if he goes to Brazil, he might be arrested, because International Court of Justice has an arrest warrant against him for kidnapping Ukrainian children and taking them back to Russia. Now, because of that, Putin is always afraid to go to other countries. And on top of that, many countries are refusing to refuel Putin's plane, so he cannot even travel very far from Russia. Because he doesn't have many places where he can land and refuel, the plane, that little situation in itself, gives us a little bit of insights into Russia's position on the world. The only thing Russia has is the nuclear saber, and they keep rattling it every time they feel like they're losing this war, as General Ben Hodges often points out that Russia has a habit of threatening a war with NATO, and they bring it up any chance they get losing. But where is the Russian army that will fight that war? And if they do have an army that can take on NATO, why isn't that army in Ukraine already? Russia has been invading Ukraine for last 10 years now, in fact more than 10 years by this point, and they have only been able to capture 20% of Ukrainian territory. At this rate, it would take them almost 100 years to capture all of Ukraine. I don't think Putin is going to be around to see that if he continues down this path. But anyway, let's hear S. Lavrov's statement after Ukraine strikes inside Russia.
Under these circumstances, I'd like to ask what is Russia's views of this Brazilian-Chinese initiative? It still makes sense for both countries to pursue a initiative in this sense. Thank you.
Well, on the decision of the United States to allow Ukrainian regime to use missiles up to 300 kilometers long, we read what the New York Times published about this. There are still no confirmation either from the White House or from the Pentagon, but we basically take our position on the basis of what is going on physically. And physically, ATACMS, apparently not as long as 300 kilometers, are being used, including this early morning in Russia, against the Bryansk Oblast of Russia, which is bordering Ukraine. And we proceed from the understanding that this is happening, and that any modification of ATACMS cannot be used without American experts and instructors, including satellite data, including programming and targeting. The President mentioned this several times. If long-range missiles are going to be applied from Ukraine into Russian territory, it will also mean that they are operated by American experts, military experts. And we will be taking this as a qualitatively new phase of the Western war against Russia, and we'll react accordingly.
Earlier, we covered how Putin will never use nuclear weapons, because all the benefit is in the fear that Russia will use nuclear weapons. Russia doesn't get any tactical or strategic advantage by using nuclear weapons. They only have that bluff card that they can play to stop Western countries from helping Ukraine in a way that Ukraine needs, and that's where we'll leave it for today. With Ukraine's use of ATACMS expanding and Russia's rhetoric intensifying, the stakes in this conflict continue to rise. What do you think? Will these developments push NATO and Russia closer to direct confrontation? Or is this just more posturing from the Kremlin? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more breaking updates. Stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.